Okay. Welcome to Garden of the Spirit. What? A class studying apples from the orchard for the second time, beginning after Pesach 2014. This class meets in Long Meadow, Massachusetts, the center of the universe, and is held in memory of Malka Ruth Bas Moshe Margaret Vogel of blessed memory. Apples from the Orchard contains selections of teachings of Kabbalah from the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, based on the weekly Torah portion, superbly translated and explained by Rabbi Moshe Wisniewski. Okay, so we're at page 336. This chapter is only 2 pages, but there is a lot here, some interesting stuff. And then there's only 2 pages. Then we'll go to the back of the book, to the to chapter 8. Oh, what did I forget? I forgot the date in here. Today. Yes, I got it. 32 years. Okay. Everyone wish happy anniversary to Alan.
Yay.
Anniversary.
All
Today?
right. Yes, today.
Mine's tomorrow.
Oh, happy
Oh,
anniversary. So Alan's 42 years, but with 42, but with Gus up to 60. Both the head tefillin and hand tefillin contain
too.
4 paragraphs from the Torah, handwritten by a scribe on parchment. All 4 paragraphs contain the mitzvah to put on tefillin. The first 2 paragraphs are from chapter 13 in Shmos. The first one is about redemption of firstborn of humans, and the second is about redemption of firstborn donkeys. Among other things, remembering leaving Egypt, mitzvah of tefillin, and other things. The last 2 paragraphs are from Devarim, chapter 6 and chapter 11. And we are familiar with these 2 because the 3rd paragraph is the first paragraph of Shema. The last paragraph is the 2nd paragraph of Shema. The hand tefillin contain 1 scroll with all 4 paragraphs. And the head tefillin contain 4 discrete scrolls, each one with 1 of the paragraphs. And the hand tefillin has 1 compartment. The head tefillin have 4 compartments, 1 for each scroll. The Gemara asks, what is the arrangement of the 4 tefillin passages? That means in the head. The passages, and there are 4. We'll go through. And this is an order of how they are in the Torah. The passages of sanctify to me, and it shall come to pass, are placed on the right, and the passages of Hear, O Israel, and it will be if you hearken, are placed on the left. This is a quote from the Gemara. Let me put an end quote here. No, beginning quote.
Anybody else, or you made it for yourself?
This is a little unclear. This Gemara is unclear. Rashi explains it means they are placed from right to left of a person facing the wearer of tefillin. So we're talking about someone who's standing, you're wearing tefillin, but someone is standing in front of you and looking at you. From his perspective, they are in the same order as they appear in the Torah, from right to left of the person facing you. Right, first, sanctify me, then it shall come to pass. Number 3, Hear, O Israel, and 4, it will be if you hearken. This is Rashi's explanation of the Gemara.
Makes sense.
Rabbeinu Tam in Tosfos, who was a grandson of Rashi, and if you're wondering, he and his cousins argue with Rashi, disagree with Rashi, several times on every page of the Gemara. He understands the language of the Gemara differently. He says it means from the right side of the person facing the wearer of tefillin, that first sanctify me. That's the same. 2, it shall come to pass. That's the same. The third is it will be if you hearken, and the 4th, hear, O Israel. In other words, Rabbeinu Tam says the first and second paragraphs are placed from the right, like Rashi, but the 3rd and 4th paragraphs are placed starting from the left, different than Rashi. Or according to Rashi, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. According to Rabbeinu Tam, 1, 2, 4, 3. Okay, so we're going to ask Alan to please begin on page 336, chapter 7.
Rashi's and Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. It will be for a sign upon your hand and a remembrance between your eyes. Hashem tells us through Moshe that we must remember the Exodus by wearing tefillin, leather boxes in which 4 scriptural passages are inserted. One of these passages is this very part of the Parsha from Shmos 13, 1 through 10. The 4 passages are referred to by their first words, and according to the Arizal, correspond to the 4 letters of Hashem's name Havaya as follows: Kaddish, Yud, Vayu, Ki, Yavicha, Hey, Shema, Vav, Vehei Im Shemoah, Hey.
Okay. Now, okay, so in simple terms, right to left, from the person looking at you, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, according to Rashi, according to Rabbeinu Tam, 1, 2, 4, 3. And that's without getting into more details. According to Rabbeinu Tam, the 2 paragraphs with the shin in the first word, Kadesh, and Shema, are on the outside. And the 2 paragraphs that start, it will be, Vahaya Kiviyacha and Vahaya Im Shemoah, on the inside. Keep in mind, guys, the shins are on the outside. What engraved on the outside of the head tefillin are shins. One of them is a shin with 3 arms, the other one the shin with 4 arms. The word Vahaya means it will be and contains the 4 letters of Hashem's name, Havaya. The name it's the same verb, Havaya. Hashem's name, Yudke Vavke, means is. He is, and or something like that. And it will be is the future. Vahaya is that it will be is the future form of is. So it is from the same root. So, but the 2 middle ones are connected to the name Havaya. What I wrote here is might be a few things a little bit different, but we'll continue here. So follow carefully to his explanation.
With regard to the tefillin and the order these passages appear on the parchment of the hand tefillin and are placed in the compartments of the head tefillin, Rabbeinu Tam holds that the Havayas must be in the middle. In their commentaries on the Talmud, Rashi and his grandson, Rabbi Yaakov ben Meir, known as Rabbeinu Tam, disagree regarding the order in which the above 4 passages should appear in the tefillin. Rashi says they should appear in the tefillin in the same order as they appear in the Torah, which is the order listed above, left to right relative to the person wearing the tefillin. Kabbalistically, this would mean that the basic order of the letters of the name Havaya is preserved, and a person facing the person wearing the tefillin would see and read the passages right to left in the proper order. Rabbeinu Tam says the order of the third and fourth passages must be reversed. In this way, the Shema is found in the right-hand compartment of the head tefillin relative to the person wearing them. The word V'yah that begins two of the passages is spelled Vav He Yud He, and is thus a permutation of the name Havaya, Yud He Vav He, according to the opinion of Rabbi Tam. The two passages whose first words are permutations of the name Havaya are placed next to each other in the middle.
All right. The four paragraphs in the tefillin correspond to the four letters of Hashem's name, Havaya. Yud, Vav, He, Vav, in the order. No, I messed that up. Okay, Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey. In the order of how the paragraphs appear in the Torah, it shows in the chart on page 336. Since Rabbeinu Tam inverts the last two paragraphs, then in the head tefillin, they are the order of Yud, Hey, Hey, Vav. 1, 2, 4, 3. The pasuk in Yirmiyah, which is read in the Haftorah of Tisha B'Av, says, in chapter 9, Ko Amar Hashem, Al Yishalel Chacham B'Chachmaso, V'Al Yishalel HaGibor B'Gvoraso, Al Yishalel Asher B'Ashro. Ki Im Bezos Yishalel HaMishalel, Haskel V'Yadoa Osi. Thus said Hashem, let not the wise man glorify himself with his wisdom, and let not the strong man glorify himself with his strength. Let not the rich man glorify himself with his wealth. For only with this may one glorify himself, contemplating and knowing me. The initials of the four words, may one glorify himself, contemplating and knowing, are the letters Havaya in the order of Yud, Hey, Hey, Vav, the same as the order of the paragraphs of the head tefillin, according to Rabbeinu Tam. If you look up on the page, it is the four initials that are bolded. Keep in mind that we are talking about the head tefillin, which, merely by virtue of wearing tefillin, directs and infuses a person's consciousness with godliness, contemplating and knowing me. I thought that was a really good line. Okay.
I'm down here, right?
Um,
No, yeah, I thought so. Effectively, he said that one must ensure that the name of Havaya be placed in this order in order to follow the order of the name Havaya in the initials of the phrase in this, let he who glorifies himself glorify himself, that he understands and knows me. The full passage reads, thus said Hashem, let not the wise man glorify himself with his wisdom, nor let the strong man glorify himself with his strength, nor let not the rich man glorify himself with his wealth. For only with this may he who glorifies himself glorify himself, that he understands and knows me, for I am Hashem, who does kindness, justice, and righteousness in the land. For these I desire, so says Hashem. The initials of the words for let he who glorifies himself glorify himself, that he understands and knows. Yishalel, Himhathalel, Haskel, V'Yadoa are Yud He Vav He. The Yud He He Vav. the permutation of the name Havaya, followed when the four passages are arranged in the order prescribed by Rabbeinu Tam. That is, with the last two letters of the name reversed. This is appropriate for tefillin. This is appropriate for tefillin foster divine consciousness, and this verse speaks of the knowledge of Hashem.
Rashi, on the other hand, follows the order of paragraphs in the order of Havaya, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. As with all issues of halacha, traditional Jewish law, all opinions are legitimate and correct, and are elu v'elu divrei Elokim Chaim, words of the living God. Practically, that's like in theory. Practically, we usually follow one opinion. The head tefillin are from Chachma, since they are on the head, and the hand tefillin are from Malchus. Now, the Gemara says Hashem wears tefillin too. In his tefillin are written praise of Israel, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael, Goy echad ba'aretz, who is like your nation, Israel, one nation in the land. Okay, for comparison, conversely, in our tefillin, it mentions that Hashem is one. So our tefillin says like Hashem is one or he's unique. His tefillin says Israel is unique or one. So the halacha is to wear tefillin according to Rashi, but people who are extra careful, this is the halacha, that people who are extra careful should put on tefillin according to Rabbeinu Tam after davening. I'm going to change that to be in addition to Rashi, because some people actually wear two at the same time. Yeah, smaller tefillin. They're not the size that we have. Okay, Jim, would you like to continue?
Sure.
337 at the bottom.
Rashi follows the natural order of the name Havaya. Both opinions are words of the living God. Both sets of tefillin elicit from Chachma, being situated on the head of Zeranpin. The hand tefillin elicit from Malchus, and the head tefillin elicit from Chachma, Abba. It is written in them, that is in the supernal tefillin, who is like your people Israel. Even though it would appear at first glance that this dispute appeared only in the 12th century, it is probable that the two traditions regarding how the passages are to appear in the tefillin predates this era substantially and possibly hails back even to Moshe's time. In any case, according to Jewish law, we are to put on tefillin according to Rashi's opinion. God-fearing people who wish to fulfill both opinions, however, put on two separate pairs, one assembled according to Rashi's opinion, one assembled according to Rabbeinu Tam's opinion, either at the same time or by putting on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin after taking off Rashi's. Some of the words in the above text appear in parentheses. At this point, Rabbi Chaim Vital writes, inasmuch as at this point the paper was torn because it was eaten by mice, I filled in the text in order to indicate which words are part of the original and which ones I added. I put my additions in parentheses. If I erred, may my error rest with me. Okay.
One moment. Okay, any thoughts, feedback, comments? Any feedback?
I'm not here. I don't hear.
don't hear you. I don't have anything to say. Because we were through the Exodus, and now I know this is mentioned in the parsha. That's why we're talking about it. But I don't find the connection with what we were talking before. That's why have nothing to say.
You mean the connection what we were speaking at the beginning of the class, or what we spoke about last week?
Last week, yeah.
The Torah, after we left Egypt,
Mhm.
Moshe gave the people, at least it's written over there, that Moshe taught the people about the mitzvah of tefillin.
Mhm.
So we
Alright.
actually, we put on tefillin is a way to remember the Exodus.
Yeah.
It's doesn't say that explicitly. But it's obvious from the context that it's that it's one of the things that we do, one of the mitzvahs that we have as a result of the Exodus. No way of remembering the Exodus. So we have this film. So
In both Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam, more explicitly in Rabbeinu Tam, there is this when you get there with all the tribes, when you kick all the tribes out, and Pesach is there. So yeah, I just didn't see clearly the connection, but it's there.
what I see is that there is a halachic dispute
Mhm.
about the order of the tefillin, to put them on 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 4, 3, and it's based on the Gemara. How it's based on the language of the Gemara. You read the Rabbeinu Tam said if they wanted to tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, there were much more clearer ways of doing it. If they say it like this, it's obvious it's different. And then he brings some other like supports, like what I told you, that the two shins, the two words that begin with shin, are on the outside, and the two words for Bahaya are in the inside. Like this is another idea. So here. So you think of it as a halachic dispute. Along comes the Arizal and says there is a Kabbalistic angle to their dispute as well. According to Rashi, it's going to be the order of Yud K Vav K. According to Havaya of Hashem's name in the right order. According to Rabbeinu Tam, it's the order of the words in Yirmiyah. Yishalel Hamishalel Haskel V'Yadoa. The pasuk that tells you, don't be proud of your strength, of your wealth, of your wisdom, of your intelligence. What is there to be proud about? Be proud about your service of Hashem.
I like
you
use the word contemplation, which is not in the book's translation. So I like yours better.
What did they say?
To know God, but I forget the other verb. Hold on.
I'll look it up. So the
Okay.
Hebrew word is haskel.
Mhm.
And but generally, I like to look to see different translations. I opened up a book because I wanted to do the whole pasuk, so I used the book. Understands.
Yeah.
And
Haskel is related to the word seichel, but it's
Mhm.
haskel is in grammar we call that I forgot what you call it. Where you order somebody to do it, you say do it. What's that called?
Command.
Yeah, but in there's a technical
the
term.
tense.
declarative.
Declarative.
Yes.
Declarative,
Uh,
a mandate, and mandato.
It'll come to me.
Spanish. It's a mandato.
I don't think it's directive. Declarative. I'll think. Maybe I'll think of it. In Hebrew, it's called sivui.
On
But
the
in
tip of my
English-
tongue. Sorry.
Okay, maybe I don't know. Okay, so that's that. Any other things, or should we ready to go on to chapter 8?
So it's not just understands, it's understands and knows, Judea. So one of the, I just learned something unbelievable. I started learning this new book Hasidus with Heskey today. Just got published, Essence of Hasidus. And of the 3 bases of Hasidus, one of the bases is knowing and understanding Hashem in both a intellectual and a supra-intellectual in a belief way, in addition to accepting the oneness of Hashem, and also Hashkafa, divine providence. So the knowing and understanding of Hashem in a way that isn't just intellectual, but is also belief and intellectual combined, is very powerful. And so you're knowing Hashem in all ways, and having Hashem before you in all ways. You have to have bittul and lose yourself to a great extent, and that's service of Hashem ultimately.
Are you saying that the two supplement each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so no one
That's-
understand. I mean, that's Chachma and Bina, right?
Yeah. So Chachma, Bina, and Das. This word is a third word. It's not Chachma. It's not a fourth word. It's not Chachma. It's not Bina, Das. The word in this pasuk is Haskel. Like I say, it's Seichel, but it
Mhm.
means to use your mind. However you want to translate that, to understand, to
Intellectual,
complement,
yeah.
sorry, to contemplate. We get the idea. However, whatever the exact translation you use.
Right.
Imperative, that's what you were talking about?
Yes, imperative. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's called imperative. Thanks. There's another word I could look up. I have it on my computer. Okay. Next one, page 1234. I think.
Hold on.
Nope, 1253. 1253. Chapter 8. And this is a wait, I gotta change my share screen.
It's a big one.
Okay. Now, the Torah forbids us from eating chametz on Pesach. Chametz is a metaphor for evil. And this mitzvah, I'm going to write klipa. I don't like evil. This mitzvah is a metaphor for the era of Mashiach, when evil, when klipa and the urge to do evil, which is the urge to do evil is the Yetzer Hara, will be eradicated. One moment. Okay, Jim, please begin 1253.
Allusions to the future redemption. For 7 days, that is from the 15th to the 21st of Nisan, you must eat matzahs whenever you would like to eat bread. But in addition, on the previous day, the 14th of Nisan, you must clear your houses of leavening agents, for the soul of anyone who eats leavening food intentionally from the first day until the 7th day will be cut off from Israel. So, Rabbi Chaim Vital expounded this verse as follows. The prohibition against eating leavened bread on Passover alludes to the future order of existence, wherein leavened bread, which alludes to the evil inclination, will be nullified. Speaking through the prophet Ezekiel, God tells us in the messianic future, I will give them, that is the Jews whom he will bring back to the land of Israel, an undivided heart and place a new spirit in them. I will remove the heart of stone from their flesh and give them a heart of flesh, so they may follow my rules and faithfully observe my ordinances. Then they will be my people, and I will be their God. And I will sprinkle pure water upon you, so that you will be cleansed. I will cleanse you from your defilement and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and place a new spirit within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. I will place my spirit within you, causing you to follow my rules and faithfully observe my ordinances. Thus God will in the future remove and nullify our evil inclination, restoring us to the spiritual state of Adam and Eve before the sin of the tree of knowledge.
Okay, now, there are two words for leaven, chametz and seor. I think chametz is leavened food, and seor is the leavening agent, the culture that makes food leavened. Thanks. Alan says yeast.
Yeast.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
They're usually considered interchangeable, the two words chametz and seor, though the Torah mentions both of them. The word seor has the same letters as rosh, head, shin aleph, or sin aleph resh, resh aleph shin. As we've said many times, klipa can only exist because Elokim limits the energy from Havaya, which is the source of energy, the power station of the world. All the letters of Rosh, head, and Seor, leaven, relate to Elokim. First letter of Rosh, head, is Resh, whose gematria is 200. As we've seen a number of times, we just said it a few weeks ago, the regressive iteration of Elokim is 200. We had it with Sar, the two ministers of Paro, the Sin and the Resh. The three ministers of Paro, I'm sorry.
Right.
So the regressive iteration of Elokim is 200. Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30, Hey is 5, Yud is 10, Mem is 40. That spells Elokim. So in regressive iteration, we take the first letter 5 times, second letter 4 times, third letter 3 times, fourth letter twice, and the last letter once. So that's 1 times 5, Aleph times 5, Lamed 30 times 4, Hey 5 times 3, Yud 10 times 2, and Mem 40 times 1, which is 5 plus 120 plus 15 plus 20 is 40 is 200. So the letter of Resh is 200, regressive iteration of Elokim. The second letter, the letter Aleph, is 1, corresponds to the kolel of the word Elokim. Kolel means just the word as a whole. You take it as one unit. The whole unit, it counts as 1. The letter Shin is 300. The expanded spelling of Elokim is 300. That's Aleph spelled Lamed, Hey, Yud, and Mem. With Aleph is 1 plus 30 plus 80. Lamed 30 plus 40 plus 4. Hey 5 plus 10. Yud 10 plus 6 plus 4. And Mem 40 plus 40 is 300. So the three letters of Rosh, head, or Seor, leaven or yeast, is 300. Now, when Mashiach comes, Elokim will regulate the energy from Havaya like it does now, but Havaya will shine strong and Klipa will not be able to exist. You need the Elokim, but this idea to regulate, but the idea of concealing the energy from Havaya will not be anymore. So this is the meaning of the chametz being gone. The klipa will not exist anymore. So when we say that there's no chametz, where it's a reference to the era of Mashiach. The text, the text of the Arizal does not just connect the word Seor, leaven, with Elokim, but quotes a pasuk with the word Rosh, head, which has the same letters. Why do you need it? Why do we need this extra idea of Rosh with the pasuk, with the pasuk of the context? What is that pasuk? It tells of David's flight from Yerushalayim when his son Avshalom tried to depose him. Shmuel Beis, chapter 15. The pasuk says David prayed to Hashem at the summit or head of the Mount of Olives, facing the Temple Mount. Vayehi David ba ad harosh. David arrived at the summit. Why does the author make any reference to the word rosh, head, and why does he choose this pasuk? There are many verses with the word rosh. So the Rabbi Wisniewski writes something here. I'm going to write something along those lines, similar. We can speculate that David transformed the Saor, Chametz, of Avshalom's rebellion to Rosh, the head. In other words, obviously, Avshalom's rebellion came from Klippa, no question. And it was not good. In other words, David opposed the Klippa that exists as a result of Elohim with the overwhelming power of the name Havaya. He took the Saor and Chametz of Avshalom and Klippa of Avshalom and transformed it into the Rosh, the summit of the Mount of Olives, or the head, and got rid of the Klippa that way. Okay, Jim, please continue page 1254 at the top.
The leavening alludes to the word head, Rosh, the numerical value of which is the same as the name Elohim, as follows. The numerical value of the regressive iteration of the name Elohim, so it's Aleph, Aleph Lamed, Aleph Lamed Hey, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, is 200. The numerical value of the letter Resh. The Kolel of the name Elohim is 1, the value of the letter Aleph. And the numerical value of the name Elohim spelled out with Yuds is 300. The numerical value of the letter Shin. Thus, the word Rosh, head, has been spelled. This is the mystical allusion of the verse, David came to the head. It is clear, as is clear from the verse quoted at the beginning of this section, not only is leavened bread forbidden on Passover, also forbidden is the possession of leavening agents altogether. The word for leavening agents, shirar, is spelled out with the same letters as the word for head, Rosh. The regressive iteration of the name Elohim, Aleph Lamed, Aleph Lamed Hey, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, is 1 plus 1 plus 30 plus 1 plus 30 plus 5 plus 1 plus 30 plus 5 plus 10 plus 1 plus 30 plus 5 plus 10 plus 40 equals 5. 1 plus 4, 30 plus 3, 5 plus 2, 10 plus 1, 40 equals 5 plus 1, 20 plus 15 plus 20 plus 40 equals 200. The name Elohim spelled out with Yuds is Aleph Lamed Hey, and that's Yud Mem. So that's 1 plus 30 plus 80 plus 30, 40 plus 5 plus 5 plus 10 plus 10 plus 4 plus 6 plus 40 plus 40 equals 111 plus 74 plus 15 plus 20 plus 80 is 300. The fact that the 3 letters of the word for head each signifies some manipulation of the name Elohim signifies that this word, and by extension, the word for leavening agents, is a manifestation of the name Elohim. The name Elohim, as we know, signifies God's attributes of severity, and thus the prohibition against possessing leavening agents on Passover alludes to the facts not only will the evil inclination cease in the future, but the operative power of the name Elohim, meaning that God will cease to withhold his self-revelation in the way he does now in order for the world to appear, to function as if he did not exist. Right? Concealment, it is. This verse quoted about King David is taken from the account of his reaction to his son Absalom's mutiny. As Absalom was preparing to enter Jerusalem, David climbed to the top, the head of the Mount of Olives facing the city. The allusion here is presumably that King David, who personified holiness, had to ascend to the same level as his son Absalom, who personified the forces that rebel against holiness in order to quell the insurrection. The word head here signifies the root of evil, which is the name Elohim, God's attribute of self-withdrawal. In order to make this allusion, Rabbi Chaim Vital relates the word for leavening agents to the name Elohim via the word for head. Without it, he could have simply related the word for leavening agents directly to the name Elohim, since it is written in any case in the same letters as the word for head.
Okay. Now, I learned a new word today. The word is eschatology. Jim probably knows what it is. Eschatology is a study in religion of the afterlife, the end times, and revival of the dead. Basically, it's the ultimate destiny of man, whether personally or collectively. The archangel of Esav and Edom, what we call Sammy, because we don't say the names of angels unless they are also used as people's names. Sammy is synonymous with the Yetzer Hara. He is also the president of the Association of the Archangels of the 70 nations. The Klippa and evil of all nations of the world will cease to exist in the era of Mashiach. That means getting rid of chametz. Gershon, are you ready?
I'm in class.
What?
Yes, Esther just called me. And Sami is the head of the 70 nations who are. Eto, I'm in class. Call mama. Good. And Sami is the head of the 70 nations who are collectively referred to as the unleavened bread. Sami is another name for Satan, who possesses the triple persona of the tempter who tries to entice us to sin, the accuser who then pleads against us in the heavenly court, and the angel of death who carries out the sentence. In his first of these three roles, he is synonymous with the evil inclination. The seven archetypal nations in their unrectified state, in which they oppose Jewish people and seek to prevent them from disseminating divinity throughout the world by studying the Torah and performing Hashem's commandments, are manifestations of the forces of evil. Part of the eschatological rectification of reality and vision in the prophets is the rectification of the world's nations, involving the removal of their evil elements so that their pure aspects can participate in the messianic future. Thus, their evil elements are also alluded by the unleavened bread forbidden for consumption on Passover. Okay.
One moment. Not good. Okay. 5. We get rid of chametz before Pesach in stages. We search for chametz and declare chametz nullified the night of the 14th of Nisan. We stop eating chametz after 4 hours of the day, 10 a.m. of Erev Pesach. We may not own chametz after 5 hours, 11 a.m. Erev Pesach. And after 6 hours, 12 noon, it is forbidden by Torah law to own chametz. So the 11 a.m., the 5 hours is, I'll explain. The Torah forbids owning chametz from noon Erev Pesach. To prevent mistakes, the rabbis forbade owning chametz 1 hour before noon, and they forbade eating chametz 2 hours before noon. Think if you didn't have clocks in your house and you were relying on the where the sun was, and it happened to be overcast, right? You're in trouble. So this is why they did it. The hours mentioned are variable hours. It's 1/12 of the time between sunrise and sunset. The length of each hour is less than 60 minutes in winter and more than 60 minutes in summer, depending on where you are how far you are from the equator. So where we are, I think in winter, it's about 48 minutes. December, it's about 48 minutes each hour. And in June, it's about 72 minutes each hour.
Won't tell the union.
Union?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because when we teach, they think about 50 minutes if one condition applies, or 55 minutes if a different condition applies. Oh,
There you go.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Gershon, please go ahead. The differing
The
opinions.
different opinions regarding when the unification of leavened bread and leavening agents should occur allude to the various stages of the advent of the Messiah, in which evil will be nullified progressively. Look at that. One stage occurs on the evening of the 14th of Nisan. A second occurs at the end of the 4th hour of the day on the 14th of Nisan. A third occurs at the end of the 5th hour, during which unleavened bread must be kept in suspension, as in doubt, and at the end of which all leaven must be burned. The final stage is the end of the 6th hour, after which consumption of leaven is punishable by excision. The verse quoted at the beginning of this section tells us that on the previous day, the 14th of Nisan, you must clear your houses of leavening agents. According to the oral tradition regarding the meaning of this phrase, this means that we are forbidden to possess leaven from midday on the 14th of Nisan. The sages, however, mindful that it takes time to rid our realms of leaven, impose a number of additional time limits regarding its possession. Thus, the Mishnah states, on the evening of the 14th of Nisan, a search is made for leaven by the light of a lamp. And further, Rabbi Meir said, one may eat leaven all through the first 5 hours of the 14th and must burn it at the beginning of the 6th. Rabbi Yehuda said, one may eat it all through the first 4 hours of the 14th, must keep it in suspension all through the 5th hour, and must burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour. The hours referred to here, here or H-E-R-E.
Mistake. Thank you.
All right. The hours refers to here are relative hours. That means 1/12 of the time between sunrise and sunset. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda agree that although the biblical prohibition begins only at midday, that means the beginning of the 7th relative hour, the full rabbinical prohibition begins an hour earlier, at the beginning of the 6th hour, when all remaining leaven in our possession must be burned or otherwise destroyed. They differ only with regard to when the rabbinic prohibition against eating leaven begins. According to Rabbi Meir, it is coincident with the deadline of possession. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there is an hour between the deadline for eating and the deadline for possession, during which it must be kept in suspension. That means neither eaten nor destroyed, but benefit may still be derived from it. For example, it may be given or sold to non-Jews or fed to animals. The halacha accords with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda.
Okay. He goes into the argument in Meir and Yehuda. It's not really so germane to our discussion. It's just I think, to explain this term of that it's it's in suspension and it's neither here nor there. We don't eat it. We're not allowed to eat it anymore, but we are not obligated to get. We still can have it around the house, and you can feed it to your animals. You can still sell it. It's during that out, but practically speaking, we burn the chametz during that hour. But like it needs to be done with and burned at the end of the hour. The word I was looking for before for haskel, to understand or contemplate, I was looking for the word. I found it is lucubrate. Anyone know the word lucubrate?
Think about it, yeah.
It means to explain with intelligence. So it's not exactly, because it means to be able to explain. Okay. The rabbis. So the rabbis added safeguards to the prohibition to own chametz because of the severity of the violation. Owning Shama is cut off from its source. Go ahead, Gershon.
This is so because in the seventh millennium,
Go up, Levin.
Leaven must not be allowed to remain in our possession. Start again. Leaven must not be allowed to remain in our possession any further than this, since midday its prohibition is biblically mandated, whereas the previous deadlines are rabbinic. Therefore, possession of leaven after midday of the 14th is punishable with excision or by excision.
Officially, the Erev Mashiach begins in the year 6000, the seventh millennium. We have the ability to bring Mashiach sooner if we so merit. Today, right now, while we sit here. Klipa, but officially, the official time is the year 6000. Klipa will cease to exist. At that time, Yeshaya writes, Hashem will deal with the hosts of heaven and the kings of the earth. They will be gathered in a dungeon. The moon will be humiliated. The sun will be ashamed. For Hashem will have reigned in Mount Zion and Jerusalem. The Chafra halvana uvaisha halchama. The moon will be humiliated and the sun will be ashamed. Okay, go ahead, Abigail. This is so.
This is so because in the seventh millennium, no shells will remain in the world, for those who worship the moon will be ashamed, and those who worship the sun will be embarrassed. The verse quoted is part of Isaiah's prophecy regarding the messianic future. The seventh millennium, i.e., the millennium beginning with the year 6000 AM, which corresponds to 2240 CE, is alluded to by the seventh hour of the 14th of Nisan. This is the deadline for the messianic redemption.
Okay. Thank you. There are many teachings. There are many teachings regarding the Erev Mashiach, some of them inconsistent with each other. The Rambam writes that we do not have a clear tradition of what will occur. We just know generalities and we know for certain that it will occur. Some inconsistencies can be explained as different possibilities. It depends on the merit of the Jewish people. If we merit, it's going to be this way. If we merit, Mashiach will come on a donkey. If we merit, Mashiach will come on a cloud. If we don't merit, he'll arrive on a donkey. The inconsistencies can also be explained as different stages in the Erev Mashiach. The changes will occur slowly in stages. According to this, the fifth hour on Erev Pesach, when we may not eat chametz, but we are still allowed to own it, corresponds to the time when the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt. Jews will return to Israel, and Mashiach will be our leader. Holiness will dominate, but some klipa will still exist. So that we just show the stages where we search for chametz at night, and then the next day we can eat chametz until a certain time, and then we're allowed to own chametz until a certain time, and then we have another hour that's a buffer until it becomes a prohibition of the Torah. So this is like the stages by which klipa will be eradicated when Mashiach comes. Continue, Avigail, but during
the fifth hour, which is the messianic era, leaven is held in suspension, and thus there are still non-Jewish nations, and the 100-year-old youth will die and be cursed. Understand this. The beginning of the seventh millennium is a deadline for the commencement of the second phase of the redemption, which will be marked by the resurrection of the dead, as well as all of the other miraculous changes in reality or alluded to in the prophets. The first phase of the redemption is known as the Messianic era, literally the days of the Messiah, about which the sages state their sole difference between the present order and the Messianic order is the Jews' subjection to the non-Jewish governments, which will cease upon the advent of the Messianic era. During this first phase, the temple will be rebuilt, the Jewish exile will return, or the Jewish exiles will return to the land of Israel, and the Davidic monarchy will be restored, headed by the Messiah himself. However, no openly miraculous changes in reality will occur, including the elimination of the evil inclination. The full spectrum of temple rituals will thus be reinstated, including sin and guilt offerings. Nonetheless, on account of the increased revelation of divinity that will accompany the restoration of the temple, and the ingathering of the exiles, it will be common for people to live well into their hundreds. In the words of Isaiah, there will no more be an infant or elder who does not live out his days. The 100-year-old youth will only then be reckoned liable for capital punishment, and the 100-year-old sinner will be cursed if he commits a sin requiring his excommunication. We see that even though there will be an increase in longevity, the capacity to sin will still exist. It could be that this increased longevity will be the result of natural causes, such as the lessening of debilitating psychological conditions, depression, stress, anxiety, etc., along with the widespread adoption of positive attitudes towards life, the sense of purpose, healthier lifestyle and habits, not to mention the reduction or elimination of detrimental environmental conditions, pesticides, pollutants, contaminants, disease-promoting conditions, etc., that will be possible once humanity puts its mind to deal with them properly and so forth.
Okay, thanks. So now, chametz is the result of one of the 5 grains, wheat, barley, rye, oats, and spelt, coming into contact with water. Other liquids, such as fruit juice, that are 100% free of water, do not render the grains chametz. Okay, technically speaking, if you get fruit juice and you mix it with the flour, it will not become chametz. However, if the container that contains the fruit juice has 1 drop of water in it, 1 drop of water in this container, then the grain may become chametz. So since it has to be like absolutely 100% dry, 0 water, other than the fruit juice, practically speaking, we don't do it.
Not from concentrate.
What?
Cannot be from concentrate. The juice.
Well,
If you do it yourself, you make orange juice yourself, and you know that everything is perfectly dry. Water which causes grain to become chametz or allows klipa to exist is referred to as treacherous waters in Tehillim chapter 124. David writes, "Men rose against us; they would have swallowed us alive. The waters would have inundated us. The current would have surged across our soul." The treacherous waters. Blessed is Hashem who did not present us as prey. I think we say this every day in davening too, in 76. So Hasidus speaks of the treacherous water as a metaphor for thoughts that distract during prayer. And here we're going to say that this treacherous water is what can cause the grain or the flour to become chametz, to become klipa. Go ahead, Avigail.
the illusion in the fact that water is what causes flour to rise is the treacherous water. Leaven is defined as flour of any of the 5 grains, wheat, barley, spelt, rye, or oats, that once having been harvested comes in contact with water for 18 minutes. Other liquids, in contrast, do not cause flour to rise and thus do not render these flours leaven. In Hasidic thought, the treacherous water of the Psalms refers to distracting thoughts during prayer, this being another manifestation of evil.
In order to lessen the chance of dough becoming chametz before it can be baked. So again, what is chametz? You mix flour and water, you let it stand for 18 minutes, and then it can start becoming chametz. The chemical reaction can take place. We have a few chemists here, so I got to be careful. We use water drawn at sunset to bake matzah and let it sit overnight. We do this today. My family, we bake on. I belong to a group that bakes matzah. We bake Sunday every year, and on first Sunday of Adar, Thursday evening at sunset, they take the water from the faucet that's underground for the matzah, and we take it at sunset. We let it sit overnight. This water is called mayim shalanu, water that stayed overnight. It's cooler and possesses less of a chance of the dough becoming chametz. Water that's warm, on the other hand, is treacherous water. Our relationship to the material world should be cool and without passion. We live in a material world and we must be involved in it. Okay, we can't run away from it. But our involvement should be cool and without passion for material things, indifferent. Okay, go ahead, Abigail.
Based on this, you can understand why the water used to bake the matzahs must not have been left standing overnight, or must have been left standing overnight before they are used, and why they may not have been left under the sun, even on a cloudy day, and all the other laws pertaining to this water. The water used to bake the Passover matzahs must be left standing overnight in order that cool enough, not that it is cool enough not to induce leavening. For the same reason, they must not be left standing in the sun, even on an overcast day. The heat of this water alludes to the heat or enthusiasm for materiality that can make water treacherous. We thus see that although water is an essential ingredient of matzah, care must be taken that it not become treacherous water. Allegorically, water is a symbol of material plenty, since it makes produce grow. Material plenty is a blessing that, if used properly, can enhance our lives and allow us to fulfill God's will in the most effective and satisfying way. However, if we focus on it as an end rather than a means, it becomes a distraction, a force of evil, and the water that promotes its growth becomes treacherous water. The water used for matzah must therefore be cooled of its potential to promote enthusiasm for material plenty as an end rather than a means.
Thank you. The prophet Yirmiyah writes, Israel is holy to Hashem, the first of his crop. Israel is called the crop of Hashem and the first of his crop. Growing grain is the fruit of man's labor and essential for the world to exist. It's something that can be hard to relate to since food is grown commercially nowadays and most people do not work the land. Electricity comes from an outlet in the wall. Milk comes from the bottle, right? And grain and fruit come from the supermarket. Man can exist without the lawyer, stockbroker, and rabbi, but we cannot exist if food is not grown. And everyone, you're all probably aware that Russia and Ukraine supply 30% of the world's grain between them, 29% of the world's grain between them. And a lot of countries now are facing severe crises. So it has been in the news lately. In modern society, we specialize in our field, and it's more economical for me to be a rabbi and let the farmer grow the food. There's a name for it. I forgot what they call it in economics. But at the end of the day, it's essential to our lives that food and grain is grown. Still, we have to make sure it does not become chametz and that klipa is kept at bay. We remain committed to mitzvahs and serving Hashem and avoid negative traits. 127, go ahead, Abigail.
Similarly, the fact that only 5 types of grain can arise alludes to the Jewish people who are called the beginning of his produce.
Okay.
It is for this.
1 minute. The Talmud in Rosh Hashanah, look at that, I wrote so much and he only had lines there. The Talmud in Rosh Hashanah says the world is judged 4 times during the year. On Pesach regarding grain, on Shavuos regarding fruit from trees, on Sukkot regarding water and the 70 nations, and on Rosh Hashanah for life. Since Pesach is the time we focus on grain and keeping it free of chametz, it is proper that it is the time we are judged regarding grain. Fruit of trees are sweet and represent Torah scholars. Shavuos is the time we receive the Torah. Sukkot is the beginning of the rainy season, and the lulav, esrog, and pouring of water with the offerings are all meant to enhance prayers for rain. Rosh Hashanah is the day Adam and Eve were created, so that is the time man is judged. Go ahead, Elisheva.
Abigail?
Abigail, I'm sorry, 1258.
That would have been a good name. It is for this reason that the world is judged on Passover with regard to grain, on Shavuos with regard to the fruit of the trees, which allude to the Torah scholars, on Sukkot with regard to water, alluding to the 70 nations, and on Rosh Hashanah, the whole world is judged with regard to life and death. The sages teach us that the world is judged on 4 times during the year. The simple reason for the first 3 times is because those points in time precede specific periods in the annual agricultural cycle in the land of Israel. The grain crop begins to ripen immediately after Pesach, the fruits ripen immediately after Shavuos, and the rainy season begins immediately after Sukkot. In addition, however, we see here that there are allegorical reasons as well. Since we have established the correlation between the Jewish people and the grain, between Passover and the future redemption, it is clear that the Jewish people are judged with regard to their collective and personal redemption on Passover. The choicest agricultural products are fruit, since their flavor and sugar content provide sweetness and zest above and beyond the basic satiating properties of grain. They therefore allude to Torah scholars, the elite of the Jewish people. We have already seen how the 70 archetypal nations are judged on Sukkot and are rectified by means of the 70 bulls offered up as the additional offerings for this holiday. Since both they and water represent the capacity of life to be either good, i.e., a civilized, settled background for the divine work of the Jewish people, or evil, i.e., an usurpation of the focus we are intended to give to divine consciousness, the world is judged with regard to water at the same time that the 70 nations are judged.
In any case, grain is essential for the existence of man, but chametz stains our service of Hashem and interferes with our connection to holiness. So we are going to stop in a minute, but I do want to say we meandered a little bit. We went through some different things. What I wrote at the end, I think, is the bottom line. Like I say, it's hard a little bit to see some of the flow or why some of the details are included. But in any case, that was the bottom line, that the chametz, the grain is essential, and chametz is what interferes. It's the klipa that interferes. I know we went kind of fast. We did an hour and 10 minutes, and we finished 7-8 pages. There's a lot here, but you do have the notes, and I strongly recommend that if you want to review, to print the notes and then read through them. Read through them during the week. I do want to wish Gershon good luck tomorrow.
Thank
Say,
you. Yeah.
what else? He's having his knee done, right?
By computer. I mean, by robot.
Robot.
By
Make sure they do the right one.
No, the left one.
The other left.
Hey, I'm going to say goodnight, everyone.
Okay.
Good
Thanks
night.
all.
Thanks, everybody.
Take
Be
care.
well. Thanks for teaching.
You're welcome. My pleasure.